The Pentose phosphate pathway, presented by Victor Carpanta, Priscila Mercado, and Patricia Olivos, from Biotechnology and Molecular Medicine Master's Program students in UAM. Belong to Biochemistry course, holder Professor Elba Villegas. Before we start, it has also been conceived with other names like hexose monophosphate shunt or pathway, the phosphogluconate pathway, pentose monophosphate cycle, Warburg-Dickens-Holerker shunt, among others. How was it discovered? Let's find it out in the past. Next to glycolysis and the tricarboxylic acid cycle, the pentose phosphate pathway was one of the first metabolic pathways to be discovered. Work in the pathway was stimulated by the famous medicine Nobel Prize Otto Warburg. In the 1930s, Warburg demonstrated that the nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, or NADH, functions as an electron carrier. In addition, this work revealed the existence of a second coenzyme, termed nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate, abbreviated as NADPH, required for the oxidation of the glucose 6-phosphate to 6-phosphogluconate. Not the first, work in the subsequent 3 decades, driven substantially by Franz Dickens, Ephraim Racker, Fritz Lippmann, and Bernard Horeker, yielded a complete canonical pathway. What about it? This is an alternative glucose oxidation pathway, and it's a central element in the biosynthetic metabolism and the redox homeostasis maintenance in cells. As it can be seen in the mapping by Keck, a system of branched pathways is depicted where glucose 6-phosphate is the main intermediary molecule of this anaerobic and cytoplasmatic pathway. Then, what is it used for? The main function is the production of NADPH for reductive biosynthesis and the ribose 5-phosphate for the nucleotides and nucleic acids synthesis, as well as the lipid synthesis like fatty acids and steroids. It manages the response for oxidative stress by reducing levels of the glutathione S-transferase, responsible for antioxidant activity which eliminates reactive oxygen species, as known as RAS. What do reactive oxygen species do? They bring forth and accumulate RAS, which induces oxidative damage to mitochondrial membrane that may decrease its functions, therefore causing cell death. Oh, by the way, please don't forget the ribose synthesis, the basis for nucleotides like adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine, which form the DNA molecule. Most importantly, it doesn't use or generate adenosine triphosphate or ATP. Hitherto, several benefits are conferred, among them the carbon dioxide production. However, since this pathway produces pentose, also can reverse this effect by breaking down glucose or pentose. In other words, it can disrupt their generation. In the cell, where does it happen? I've already told you about the interesting features of this cytoplasmic pathway. It occurs in the whole body. Nonetheless, it is more active in the liver, adipose tissue, adrenal cortex, thyroid, erythrocytes, testes, and mammary glands during lactation. Likewise, it is under hormone control. Well, here we go. The enzymatic reactions subdivide the pentose phosphate pathway into 2 branches. The first, the oxidative phase or irreversible, with the NADPH production, and the second, the non-oxidative phase or reversible, with the pentose phosphate production. This one or that one. Unlike glycolysis, oxidation is accomplished by dehydrogenation using NADP oxidized nor NAD oxidized, where glucose enters the cell, but it can leave. The oxidative phase is highly active and converts the metabolite glucose 6-phosphate into the 6-phosphogluconolactone, that is a lactone or an internal ester that links carbons 1 and 5 via the reactions of the glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase. This reaction can also occur spontaneously, but the enzyme increases its specificity that forms the reductive molecule NADPH. The lactone is hydrolyzed by the lactonase into the 6-phosphogluconate with the participation of magnesium or calcium. Then, it occurs the oxidative decarboxylation of the 6-phosphogluconate into the ribulose 5-phosphate by the enzyme 6-phosphogluconate dehydrogenase, supported by magnesium 2. At this point, the NADPH is yielded again. The ribulose 5-phosphate isomerization carried out by its isomerase forms the ribose 5-phosphate, in other words, a pentose phosphate. Let's have a look on the prior overview. Now, as you can see, and step by step, we analyze the oxidative phase. This step is dramatically regulated under oxidative stress conditions, cell and stem cells proliferation, nutrient signaling response, and bacterial infections. In the first step, our star is enzyme glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase, which oxidizes 1 mole of its substrate into a mole of the 6-phosphogluconolactone, followed by a mole of NADPH. This enzyme, by the way, is supported by magnesium or calcium. This is the most important rate-limiting enzyme whose genetic deficiency causes an acute lysis of erythrocytes, as known as hemolytic anemia. Secondly, the enzyme gluconolactone hydrolase transforms its substrate into the 6-phosphogluconate, again held by magnesium or calcium. In the third step, the 6-phosphogluconate dehydrogenase forms again NADPH from the oxidation of its substrate into 3-keto 6-phosphogluconate, mainly with the cooperation of magnesium or calcium. And finally, the oxidative decarboxylation forms the ribulose 5-phosphate. Hey, take a look at the carbon dioxide release. As the saying goes, business and friendship don't mix. Here we have the energy balance produced by this oxidative branch. 2 moles of the reduced NADPH plus a mole of the ribulose 5-phosphate plus a release mole of carbon dioxide. The non-oxidative phase is also reversible. In this phase, the ketose phosphate is converted into an aldose phosphate, which in turn is a ketose. Meanwhile, the ketose gives away a carbon and the aldose captures it. Who is in charge of catalyzing these reactions? Well, when a 2-carbon exchange occurs, the enzyme involved is the transketolase, needing TPP. But if a 3-carbon exchange happens, the transaldolase is the one who performs the reaction. Since the ribulose 5-phosphate can start immediately in the non-oxidative phase, first it has to be turned into a ketose and an aldose. For accomplishing this task, the ribulose 5-phosphate uses an epimerase to yield the xylulose 5-phosphate and a ketoisomerase to produce the ribose 5-phosphate. Secondly, the transketolase transforms its substrates into glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate and the acetoheptylase 7-phosphate. The former is the one who accepts 2 carbon atoms. This enzyme requires together the thiamine pyrophosphate like a coenzyme and the magnesium. Combined to these functions, the B1 vitamin deficiency can arise the Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. Third, the transaldolase transforms its substrates into fructose 6-phosphate and erythrose 4-phosphate, where there is a 3-carbon exchange. This is the starting regulatory spot or hub for other biochemical pathways. And the last, but not the least, the fourth step shows how the transketolase forms the fructose 6-phosphate and the glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate with a 2-carbon exchange. And this is an overview of the non-oxidative branch. And the energy balance for the non-oxidative phase is a mole of ribose 5-phosphate plus 2 moles of xylulose 5-phosphate produces 2 moles of fructose 6-phosphate plus a mole of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Finally, bringing back business and friendship don't mix, the total energy balance for the phosphate pentose pathway is 6 moles of the glucose 6-phosphate combined to 12 moles of the oxidized nicotinamide dinucleotide phosphate produces 5 moles of the fructose 6-phosphate, 6 moles of the carbon dioxide, and 12 moles of the reductive molecules in the form of NADPH. Its regulation is up to the glucose 6-phosphate availability and the reductive energy required by the cell, as well as for the ribose 5-phosphate and the ATP. These are our biomedical information resources: mapping by Keck database, chemical structures by PubChem, protein structures by UniProt, modeling by Babel and Chimera, and biomedical information by several authors. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you like it, don't forget your thumbs up. See you next time!